Hey, welcome once again. My name's Steve Jaguar.
And I'm his co-host, Mike Foster.
This show is your cloud-native video newsletter for your impatient world, where we distill the best curated content from throughout the week, where we talk about all things security, Kubernetes, cloud-native vulnerabilities, big money, things that make you go, what? And we always have some kind of technical dive into technologies and automations that make your life easier.
Yeah, and some crazy WTFs in the world today. So we'll be discussing those. Steve has some awesome news along with some CKS talk. We'll be talking the Certified Kubernetes Security Specialist exam and the tools that you can use to take advantage of it. Welcome to the show. Hope you're having a good week. We have a bunch of exciting news. Well, Steve has most of the exciting news, but we're going to get into it. I have a bunch of news. You can always get the links on YouTube. Subscribe, like it. You'll get notifications, and that can be your newsletter for the week. You don't have no emails, no bugging you. Just a little YouTube notification. It's fine.
Exactly. So we just jump straight into my ego.
Well, I was gonna give you a softball to be like, Steve, what do you have to tell the people? But I was hoping that you would just take the lead and just be extremely selfish. So go for it.
All right. Took the CKS test and smashed it.
Crushed it.
What'd you get in the CKS, Foster? 67.1.
Yeah, I think I just barely passed. I think I got 70 something, 74, 76.
But you hadn't credit. So for those of you who are unaware, Michael Foster passed the exam like as it was a newborn baby coming out of the womb, with no courses, no cheat sheets, no Waleed repos, nothing. You did it fresh out of the box. So the fact you passed it at all, now that I've done it, I'm like, respect for passing that without all of the goodies to help you along the way, because I will confirm that is harder than the CKA.
Yes, they throw a lot of curveballs in at you and just things that you almost never see, right? So
definitely,
it was interesting studying for it. I was like the baby fawn, just legs shaking the entire time during the test. But yeah, for context, this was an exam that came out last December, a year ago, December. So it's been a year and 2 months now. And over that year, I think like a bunch of other exams and ways of, I think maybe books have been written. I know Waleed has a great repo on it. So a ton of resources. Curious what you use to study for the test.
Yeah, so I'm fortunate, actually. I did not know that here at my workplace, we have Udemy Professional. Like, I have unlimited access to that. So I just cranked it up, and I was able to, well, because there's 2 courses on there. One still said 2021 and one said 2022 on it. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do that one because that looks like the most current. And then there was this one that was like a course, but all it was a bunch of test questions like that. If you had to pay, that was not your value for money option. But so I did the one by Kimbust Camp, CK Killer Shell.
Yeah, killer.sh.
Those guys.
Yeah.
So I did the one created by I don't know if it's a them or a him, but that's the one I did. It was, I'll show it to you at the end. That's the whole tool time. We're going to go through and I'll show you what I did, how it gets set up. Some of the cool things that like were for me are just now takeaways. Like I'm going to continue to have to play with, which I think is pretty cool. And then I'll show you like what I studied and what was a complete waste of time. And obviously I'll tell you all the questions. Nah, I'm not going to do that.
All the questions. Yeah. Anybody who's working for the CNCF, look away. It is funny that almost every single week on Reddit there will be a post about it, like, hey, I took the CK and here's what I learned, and people just give away the entire test. And yeah,
that should have been. I didn't know that. You should have told me that last week, and I would have been on Reddit doing my study instead of taking a course.
Oh yeah, just go through Kubernetes Reddit and then just filter by CKS, CKA, and you'll find a bunch of good resources. Should have told you.
A bunch of good resources. Contraband.
Contraband. Yeah. Is there any thoughts on the test? Any hot takeaways before we get to the general news? Or are you saving that all for the demo?
I'll tell you the one that I thought that the one I said like bit not time wasty, right? I chose the 2022 one because I had some quite good sections with OPA in it. In a variety of ways, both in terms of how to use OPA the command line, how to use it as the admission controller, how to create the different components you need to create rules. And so I learned how that worked and the Rego and all this. It was good, right? No OPA. Like maybe I was waiting for the next generation of the questions to come, but there wasn't a single question on it there. But there was a pod security policy question. So I don't know if like I just hadn't flipped, like maybe starting April. I had heard that there might be some exam changes coming. I just didn't know if I was going to get them or not. So in the end, I used the PSP section from the 2021 and did that just to make sure I had it, because they're not that hard really. But then I did all the OPA stuff, and I was just like, I was actually disappointed because I felt so like, I got this. If there's an OPA question, I'm going to smash it. And it's like, nothing.
Hey, Geek Masher is in the chat. What's going on? Geek Masher, just in time for the next section. We getting into it?
Yep.
All right.
Ding dong.
Yes.
Linux developers patch security holes faster than anyone else, says Google Project Zero. That's kind of a pretty rockin' accolade for Linux.
Yeah. Project Zero looked at fixed bugs that had been reported between January 2019 and December 2021, and they found that open source programmers fixed Linux issues in an average of only 25 days. Linux developers have been improving their speed from 32 days in 2019 to just 15 days in 2021.
That's crazy. I mean, there's probably some douchebags out there right now who are going, are you kidding me? My check-in time to deployment's 6 minutes, or some kind of weird Netflix stat. But in reality, 15 days to fix a bug is pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know if the stat's in here. It used to be that there was an average time to fix of 223 days. Like, I think that was a couple of years ago. But it was insane, right?
Mm-hmm.
But these are still big numbers. Like that.
Apple 69, Google 44, Mozilla 46, Microsoft 83.
And those are the good players who do really well. Like if you were to say, I don't want to pick on anybody specific. Let's pick on HSBC, like an organization that isn't a dedicated software organization. Like those people, their bugs get fixed super slow. Like the reality is there's a much larger process around it.
Yeah. And they say that everybody's getting faster as well, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
I think because a lot of companies are going open source. You get more eyes. You get more eyes on the problem. You have developers who are free to go to the projects that they care about. You can patch it upstream and then figure out how it moves in downstream. So you patch the issue without any internal politics, maybe in an organization, right? Versus like you're fixing something and it's gated behind Microsoft. Maybe you fix an issue and then like a product manager reaches out to another product manager. Hey, this is going to affect so-and-so product. Oh, yes, it is. Okay, well, like wait until it's stable before we push it out, right? So there's a little bit there of, honestly, I think it's just human communication versus open source. It's anybody can create a PR and fix the issue. And if it fixes it properly, why not? I also think to a certain extent, Linux is a lighter weight operating system with maybe like less heavy process security that something like Microsoft has in all the different applications. So maybe that is a factor too.
That's fair. It's a fair assessment. And there's like, I don't know how many active developers there are on Linux, the operating system, like that are totally geeking out on it. It's probably more than a commercial operating system. And things get reported and they just leap on it. So that's cool.
Yeah, and you have those developers that have been around for a long time, right? I mean, that's coming up on 30 years. So, or I think we're at 30 years. You think about those developers who, I mean, they know the operating system inside and out. So, hey, there's an issue. Hey, ping so-and-so, and they'll tell you exactly how to fix it, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
All right.
Excellent. That was a good one. Good start. Next.
Yes.
Go for it.
Government compiled a bunch of resources for you.
Whose government is it? I don't really. Oh, it's right there.
US.
Cybersecurity. Infrastructure Security Agency. Cool. Yeah. So where are they here? Fixing the security flaws. Pretty cool. Free stuff.
Free cybersecurity services and tools for network defenders specifically. I feel like maybe they're just going after some SEO stuff. Maybe the government's trying to get clicks right now.
Maybe.
It's I saw this came across my feed and I was like, you know what? Government's doing putting lists together. Why not?
Yeah, there's a lot of lists, a lot of stuff. It's a list. It's definitely a list. That is a list. It's a big list. That's only a quarter of it.
Yeah, exactly. And it was funny because I was just in I don't know, like once I clicked that, I got into a bunch of the other stuff that Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. There's no better acronym for that, right? CISA?
No, that's good.
Yeah. Anyways,
CISA.
the next one I found is actually pretty interesting because they're saying the next story. Is it a good list though?
I saw that up there. Great question. It's a big list.
It's a big list. Catalog of free services. I'm kind of curious how they define free services. Like, is open source a free service?
I don't know. Yeah.
Because I always define service.
You can't expect the government to
get
these things
right for you.
Yeah, it's like somebody else does my security for me. Security as a service. Sure, that would be great. It wasn't though. Services. I don't know. Anyway, it's a good initiative. We're just gonna take that and pin it up on the fridge. Nice work, CISA.
Yeah, and this is kind of in the WTF, but I think we're just gonna put it in the general news because it leads in well. But CISA did also say everybody in the U.S. needs to watch out because there's a lot of tension ahead. So shields up, secure that infrastructure.
Yes.
Because, well, one, that should just be a given no matter what the situation is in the world. But I guess now's the time to be extra careful.
Extra vigilant. So should we do the breaking news thing now? Just because it's relevant completely to this?
Yeah, well, that was kind of the next segment, but yeah, we can do it.
It's a one shot. Every week I'm deafened by that, and every week we say and I forget. So So
Our
what was
DSO
funny,
and geek.
I think we can blame you for this, but you pasted this in and citing Ukraine 2015 as cyber key component of their force. And then I think this is 4 hours ago. Well, more than 4 hours ago, Russia old school attacked Ukraine, which is, I don't want to get too into that because we could talk about that all day. But they led with a wave of denial of service cyber attacks. So took down some notable banks amongst 10 other major organizations, et cetera, et cetera. This is both one of the, well, not the first article I read this morning, but the first email I got this morning. That, when your phone comes up with alerts, first email that was there was, "Hey, did you see Russia led with a denial of service attack?" Like, ooh, like, because that was how I found out, and then had to go to the news to go, "Oh my goodness, they actually invaded." That's not cool.
Yeah. Breaking news, literally breaking things.
Really breaking an entire country and starting with denial of service attacks. So there you go. Even more relevant. Shields up.
Yeah, WTF Russia. So
yeah,
lead into the next segment.
yeah,
just the coordination, I think, is the crazy part when you think about that. You have a whole new battlefront now. But into the other crazy stuff. Watch out for the DDoS, and watch out for getting framed now. And I have a hot take funny on this one that is interesting, just being Canadian.
Go for it.
So, hacker group has been framing people for crimes they didn't commit. Now, I'm not shocked that this has been happening, but one of the things that I actually am really scared about, and I tell people, like, there's a whole Canada thing. I don't know if anybody's watching, but the government tried to crack down on funding for the truckers. There was a whole protest / occupation. Politics aside, when I talk to people about cybersecurity, I'm like, it's not necessarily that you're guilty, but there's no recourse. So if I didn't do that thing and somebody hacks my account and makes a donation in my name, and then the media and everybody comes at me for that, I have no recourse, even though I didn't do the thing that you're freezing me for. And so when I say, okay, like what happens, and that's the issue, is just like there's no recourse, then you kind of have to, like, your flag should go up that, you could ruin somebody's life. And this is something as simple as that. Like, hey, Trump's got a new social media thing, and somebody just goes signs up 1,000 accounts under random people's names and then releases it to the media. Hey, these people signed up for this social media group, right? That's the stuff that scares the crap out of me. And when you're reading this shadowy hacker group targeting people, it's, I don't know, it gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah. Lay low, stay down. It is kind of crazy though. Yeah. Like I read through here and they're talking about how they're basically using malware to drop incriminating evidence. People go to prison. It's like, it's nuts. I don't think I'm a target of this stuff, but once the show gets popular, maybe, you never know. Mm-hmm. And by the way, for people who, I don't know, we probably have security people who watch this. The what is it called? Modified Elephant is the group. Research for Modified Elephant. That's it. That's the group who's doing it. If you don't know elephant, is this India? I assume, right? Yeah, India. Every country gets their own animal. So India's got elephant. Russia's got bear. So like Cozy Bear is a Russian.
Canada's cyber moose.
I didn't know if it was like a beaver or something. I don't know. Just Canada just doesn't even like register on the radar of hackers. Yeah. But panda's China. It's almost a bit racist, like the way
Cyberleaf. Why is panda? What?
I don't know. It just feels like we're characterizing the hacker groups.
Isn't a panda like their national animal though?
Oh, it might be, yeah.
So I mean, if you're going by the national animal, that kind of makes sense. What's UK?
Gammon. I don't know. Tea bag. Cyber group hot tea bag. Yeah, it's probably nothing that sounds cool.
Scotland has hackers. Yeah. Or the
all right.
What's the? Wow, I'm blanking. The instrument, the bagpipes.
Oh, the bagpipes,
Yeah. Cyber
gnarly
cyber
bagpipes. The
pipes.
APT
Yeah.
group.
All right, we're getting a little off topic here. All right,
All right.
we got a big
Bling.
log4shell exploit finally being used. Look at that.
Hooray! I guess.
Enter log4shell. 2 months later, we're starting to hear about this stuff. So, yeah.
Oh, that's the second report from Sentinel-1. They're doing well in the show this week.
There you go.
I haven't read this one, so this is all you.
Basically, the internet's biggest players. So, log4shell, it was somebody who had a VMware Horizon setup. They didn't do the update, and they got targeted to run malicious PowerShell commands, deploy backdoors, create backdoor users, harvest credentials, lateral movement. They got in, they have access, and it's at the point where you got to just shut it all down.
Yep. Pull the plug.
So, yeah.
Nice. I actually like this article because they kind of they talk about it, and then there's a little bit of education down here as here's some tools that hackers use. A list. Not bad. Oh, did you see this? DSO is doing our homework for us. The lion is the UK. The unicorn. Nice, but I never heard of that one. Scotland, seriously? No.
That's an interesting one. It doesn't have to be a real animal. I guess you could just make up an animal.
I guess not. No, we could maybe have the jackalope for Canada then. All right. This is another interesting push critical plugin. It's always plugins in WordPress, though, isn't it? It's like
it's been like that
forever. I don't even know. Well, what does Updraft Plus even do? Do you know what that even does? I immediately now see this going, I only have, 16 WordPress sites going at the moment. I feel a sudden urge to see if I use Updraft Plus, but I don't know what it does. Do you know what it does?
Yeah, it basically takes your internet information and backs it up to a database. So if your WordPress site ever went down, you could easily bring it back up. And I'm assuming that it has to do with exercise the privilege of downloading an existing backup, a privilege which should have been restricted to administrative users only. This was possible because of a missing permissions check on the code. Does that make sense?
Classic.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you have a WordPress site, it's backing up to an S3 bucket. Now all of a sudden, the average person can go in, the average user can go in and get a copy of that site, including all the data. Maybe that is getting backed up, so that's on you.
Okay. Well,
and it's a push.
I might use Updraft. I have a feeling I do use it on one site, but it's not backing up anything I give a crap about. So, have it world.
Yeah, the crazy thing is that it's a pushed update, so it's bad outcomes and pretty easy to exploit.
Yeah, that is crazy. So
yeah,
forced update. Okay.
WTF WordPress.
Yeah, WTF WordPress. How dare you? Or Fdraft. I suppose it's not necessarily WordPress. WordPress would have to allow it, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
They need more funding to fix all their issues. Speaking of funding. Yes, I put this one in. This is a little out of the comfort zone, I think, what we usually do for big spenders. But if anybody games, they might have seen this little Backbone controller. And you remember the old PlayStation Portable console thing, right? I feel like that's we're just reinventing the wheel now. But it's really interesting, and $40 million basically to develop controllers that will plug into mobile phones, and you can play all the games on your phone. And I was saying to Steve beforehand, why I found this really interesting is there is a targeted part because most of the world has access to phones, but not everybody has access to PCs. that
True.
now you're moving to a system where they're trying to, it doesn't matter what the platform is, whether you're PC, whether you're phone, whether you're on a console, you can all play the same game together. And how they're going to make money is they're going to make money on the service. So it's, buying skins or all the microtransactions that accompany it. And you think about it, they're doing a lot of what the cloud providers are trying to do. They're trying to abstract away the platform. Whereas it used to be, hey, we want you to buy Xbox or we want you to buy PlayStation. Now it's really about, we want you to get into the game. Now we're competing for your attention, and we're going to give you the platform to go and hang out with and do whatever with all your friends online. So the way that they're making money is shifted, and it mirrors the cloud platforms to a certain extent, with a lot of things going managed services and trying to abstract away Kubernetes and virtual machines, right?
Totally. I think the thing's really cool. I mean, I don't play a lot of games, but I kind of like it. Wasn't how much does this exist, or is this a drawing? Can I buy it now?
Yes,
That's what I'm
you
curious
can already
about.
buy the controller.
That's cool.
Yeah.
No wonder they got a lot of money. This is gonna be nuts.
And a lot of it has to do with like Windows 11 coming out, because Windows 11 can run Android apps now, right? So
Yep.
now you can run anything on Windows. You can run it on your phone. All those games are accessible. I mean, I have my computer right here, and I can play Halo on it with all my friends. So
That is pretty sweet.
yeah,
You're
cross-platform.
not gonna get anything done.
All right, I know. All right, back to security stuff.
Yep. Secure frame. Yeah, 56 million.
Yeah, compliance coming in hot lately.
Yeah, isn't it just? What round was that for 56 million? That's pretty good.
I believe it's Series A.
That's kind of the A level these days, isn't it?
Sorry,
HIPAA
Series
for
B.
health, SOC 2. How do they automate this? That's good. Like, where are they based? Because like HIPAA and SOC 2 and all of these compliance standards, like they are like the bane of some organization's existence, particularly in healthcare. So
I would be surprised. So there's a Boston, Accomplice the Boston VC led the round. So and they Optum Ventures, Kaiser were some of the other ones. Also, the founder of Carbon Black is joining the board on this round. So it's a Series B funding. I'm always kind of curious, like, what is automating those compliance standards look like?
I didn't even think. So how you say that? Like, is that even possible? Because not all of these standards like work. Like, there's not an automatable solution. Maybe a check. Automating Geek Master, yeah. Automating what? I don't know. We don't know. Some of them, yes. It's like, even if you look at, I'm more familiar with PCI than HIPAA, but some of it's more like, if we audit you, you need to demonstrate this.
Yeah.
And then some of it's obvious, you can check, right? But not all of it.
So I have a feeling it's probably, because they mention it's become a boardroom issue. It's to the point now where people are really worried about failing these audits. And of course, it's never about actually securing. It's just about failing the audits, because everything's about velocity and growth, right? So maybe there's some sort of process where it's doing an automated check every week and reporting up to the boardroom to say, hey, you're compliant, you're compliant. All right, this is out of whack, so that they can push down onto the employees to say, hey, we need to go fix this.
Sounds like a terrible place to work. You sound right. Yeah, you're probably right. It's like we're compliance focused, not security focused. And when it goes out of compliance, we're gonna push down on the employees.
They also just watched
Where's my whip?
Sneak by Fugue, right? Which is basically just compliance software. And so sometimes I feel like these startups, they don't necessarily solve the problem, but they know that they're going to solve the problem for a bigger company.
Mm-hmm. Speaking, that leads you nicely into the next one.
Yeah.
Compliance.
So compliance is hot.
It's hot. It's a heck of a diagram too. That's a beautiful piece of work. Much. That's really nice, that diagram. Is that from them? Anyway.
Anecdote. They use the colors of Slack there too, eh?
There's a little Slack logo down there.
Yeah.
There's a little Cloudflare down there.
Or Cloudflare, yeah.
Cloudflare, yeah. SoundCloud, yeah. They're making beautiful music together.
Yeah, so this is Series A, 25 million. They do have a bunch of funding from, and there's a bunch of buy-in from some of the big companies too.
Oh,
So it
okay.
says it continuously collects and maps data from AWS, Snowflake, Cloudflare, GitHub, Datadog, blah, blah, blah. The data is then leveraged to power various applications for compliance needs like audit management, risk analysis, policies, and customer evidence. Through its customized controls and frameworks, companies can meet internal and external audits and have the flexibility, visibility, and data-backed intelligence to simultaneously scale their compliance program against their own impressive growth.
Wow. They threw like a compliment into their customer base there. Have you
Yeah.
got impressive growth?
Do you ever talk a lot and say nothing? That's what that felt like.
That's what I felt like. I find it weird that they said continuously collecting data from, you said AWS, Cloudflare, GitHub, and Datadog. Well, that's right. Forget Datadog. But then I'd go, wait a second. Aren't Datadog and Snowflake continuously collecting data from those three as well? Like that's a data platform. How are you collecting data from the data platform? And anyway, doesn't matter. Compliance is hot. And I want to print this out and put it on my wall.
The company, which has R&D offices in Israel, plans to
Well,
open
that's
a new
no
office
surprise.
in New York and double its team from 60 to 120, hiring globally.
Cool. Congrats, anecdotes.
Yep.
Can't say I'm a big fan of your company name, but yeah.
Yeah.
But they have 25 million more than I do, so shut up, Steve.
Yeah, with a seed fund too. So
Yeah.
All right. Now we have one little CVE, little
Teeny.
wee little one. It's ranked high.
A little big one.
Now, what starts with the letter C?
Yes, Prometheus users beware.
Yeah, people who understand the inner workings, which is not me. Requests in flight. I think I asked you before this came in, before we started. This is a very hard to read description.
Yes.
It looks like it was written, no offense, by a millennial who doesn't use periods or capitalization.
I
Or
don't know why you said no offense. I'm hurt by that, Steve. Very
yeah,
offended.
yeah. That's right. I forgot. You are a one of the millennials. You snowflake.
But yeah, so after Steve and I went back and forth reading this, we came to a little bit of the conclusion. For those who are unaware, Prometheus time series database, what you tend to use Prometheus with is something like Grafana, which is your user interface, your graphical user interface to query Prometheus. And you'll have collectors that will basically go and collect information off of your nodes, put it into Prometheus that you can query. Now, the interaction between Prometheus or Grafana and Prometheus is HTTP server. And I believe what's going on is if there's unbounded requests from an external source, whether it be Grafana or whether it be a user or somebody has access to the system, you can create a easy denial of service with an unbounded HTTP request. And this can happen by accident. And there's a couple different methods to get around it, but that was what we kind of gathered from it. So now it's ranked high. I think it's ranked high, one, because if you're not, no problem. Yeah. One, because I think it might be easy to screw up yourself. And I'm assuming that when this got reported, it was partially because somebody realized that this was an issue when they created an unbound request.
So it's a shoot yourself in the foot vulnerability.
Yeah, because I like to think that a lot of people are not exposing their databases to public
Right.
networks.
Who's exposing Prometheus directly to the world?
Yeah, and if you have somebody that's on your internal systems trying to, denial of service attack your Prometheus database, you probably have bigger issues.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah. I can't believe that attacker went for a Prometheus.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you doing? There are probably better targets.
Yeah. So one of those, hey, make sure that your requests are proper, that you're updated, and that that you have the workaround so you're managing your HTTP requests properly. So yeah, Prometheus users beware.
Groovy. Good one. quiet week on the denial service CVE front.
Yeah, some crazy things going on in the world. So I think CVEs take the bottom rounds. Speaking of big things, CKS success. We're moving into tool time.
Yeah,
Ready,
stands
Steve?
for. Yep.
Let's do it.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Fancy. Oh no! There we go. CKS. All right. Shall I blast off? I
Do it.
Let me go straight to Killer Shell so I can introduce them.
Okay.
So for those of you who don't know, which I'm sure you all know, the Certified Kubernetes Security Specialist, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. The great co-host Michael Foster did the exam over a year ago with no prep. It took him months of full-time work to barely pass it, with which of course scared the living crap out of me, because acing the CKA, smashing all other versions of certifications in the Kubernetes space, I decided to study for a year since then before I took.
And I almost forgot, because after I did it, Michael Mann, we did the DSO podcast, right?
Yeah, right
So
afterwards.
if you want to hear my explicit thoughts of me barely passing, you check that podcast out, because that was a good glimpse back in time.
Just look for DSO Overflow on all good podcast sources and search for Exam Cram. And I just done CKA, and so we kind of talked about that on there. So I spent a while waiting for the CKS to find the right moment. And then I think I said this just beforehand, that I heard about something with the exam changing or something, and I couldn't remember what it was. So and I'd paid for it like 8 months ago. So I had to do it, otherwise I was going to lose it, right? Because I think I paid for it during the sale of the last European online KubeCon. And so I did that. And then I had to obviously find training. So I went out there and tried to find out what should I use to train with. And I should give credit, actually. Let me just, because I did go to, because I knew that Waleed, who watches this show, had a really killer GitHub repo. I also knew that Foster, you have a repo, of course, as well for CKS.
Mm-hmm.
So I did kind of like let's just read what these things have to say, and all right, okay, I like it, and then I'm going to go and look for an actual interactive course to see what exists now, because I hadn't really done it, and I came through Udemy, which I should have up. Let's flip gears. So I went to the Udemy course, and this is the Killer SH course, so you can kind of see. You get a sneak preview of it, because I don't know if you see the full deal unless you pay for it. But there's it ends at an introduction to their. It's not an interactive exam. It's not like the CKA. Some of the courses had like timed exams, so you really got a feel for the stress of the timing. Whereas I could not find anything for CKS that was like that. So you just had challenges to do, and you had all the time in the world. So you didn't really get that stress. But I guess the good thing about requiring the CKA to have the CKS is that you've already experienced what the exam environment's like, right? You're not going in cold and then basically kind of crapping yourselves when a proctor tells you to paint your walls white and shine a light up your backside to make sure there's no cheat sheets in there.
Yeah,
so
they got mad at me for my
yeah
little touchpad. I had to throw
innocuous
the touchpad
touchpad
away.
Yeah.
Watch out.
They do now allow you to have a second screen, but you have to share both screens, which is cool. The first one I did, I wasn't allowed to do that. The second one, he asked me if I had a second screen.
Interesting.
I didn't. Yeah. So that's cool. So I went with this one. What's that?
They let me use all three. I had to share all three with them. But I have
Oh,
screens
wow.
and I allowed all three. Yeah.
I
There's only
didn't
two
even...
browsers.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. What's the point then? I don't know. Anyway. So that's pretty good. Just to give you a quick rough, it's so unlike other courses on here where they give you like a Katakota style environment, they do that for the challenges, but they walk you through creating a cluster on GCP. So they kind of give you this idiot's guide with resources and downloads and little pieces. And so I have this master and worker set up here. which means over here, I think I've turned it on so that I've got like, you can jump. Let's see if the world still functions, whether Google's been denial of service. If I can spell my own password correctly. There we go. So then you come in, and then, and what was pretty kind of groovy was that all the shortcuts, all the things like you want, like autocomplete, that's just there. Like they have, you create your master, you create your worker, and then you go to their repo and you run that on the master. You can there, and you run that on the worker, and it spits out the connector script at the end, which you then cut and paste over in your worker, and ding dong, you've got a kubeadm cluster up and running on GCP, and all the commands are there to get the credentials to access it and SSH into it. So now, while I did have this sort of katacoda or killer coda environment, these are all the exercises you can do that are kind of bouncing off of here. It's like sometimes if you go down, let's just zoom down and grab cluster hardening, you get to the end. These tests are all these things. And if you say you want to do one, I don't know if I'm going to find an RBAC one, let's just choose ingress create or something. Then you get, it pops up this sort of katacoda-y thing. And by the way, which doesn't work if you have a VPN on. So if you're sitting here watching this sit and spin, it's because the VPN has come back on, which it wasn't at the beginning of the show. But I'm not going to do it. You get a little Linux prompt and away you go, right? And it gives you tips and hints and solutions on how to do everything. Some of them are easy. Some of them are freaking complicated. So that was quite cool. There's a combination of that killer coda environment and the fact that in certain instances where there were no exercises created, he would he would bring you back over to your own environment and say, and you can even see like, I've got some evidence of creating ingresses and pods and chunks and bits here, and I've got OPA Gatekeeper installed because there were no automated OPA related exercises in the killer coda. So you walked through and you created them here, but now I like that I'm left with this, and I'm left with those scripts, which I thought those were like, they weren't course specific. They could be, you could create AWS, you could create VM, and you could just go boom, boom, and you've got a 2-node instant, good to go. Like, that rocked.
Yeah, and having a kubeadm set up instead of something like Ranche or something, because the different spin-offs, they have different config files and slightly different configurations from the test. So they give you a kubeadm, which is specific to the test too, right? So where you're going to go and search for files is where it's going to be on the test, which I found really, really useful. And I had to go into all the Kubernetes documents to be like, where is this stored again? Where is this config file, right? /etc/Kubernetes/manifests, whatever you're going into. But you need to know those locations, especially on the nodes, because you have to go in to debug the nodes and debug the control plane. So very important.
Yeah, no kidding. And that was the bits where when I came in here, I was like, okay, what am I good at? What do I already know? I know how Canadians work. I know network policies. Network policies kind of overlapped with CKA. They were just harder. They just went, instead of going create a default deny policy or something like simple, or that might be quick to answer or found in the documentation, they would go, oh, well, create this and connect to this, but don't allow this and add this and block these pods
labels,
and
TCP.
yeah, exactly.
Lots bit more specific.
And block this and do this, and then you're like, then you have to know how to find the right labels to use and like this with that. Like it was like you have to create this little network maze.
Test it too. Right?
And then,
because that's the thing, is you can do it, and then you're like, did I do it properly? I don't know. How do you? Okay, well, you need to know how to use a busy box or test it or do whatever, right?
You got it. And that was like, and the thing is, if you test it, you're like, okay, if I test all of these, do I have time to finish the exam? Yeah. And I'd say the answer is no.
Yeah, so you mark it down and you hope to come back if you have to.
Right. And then you never do. Yep. So that's happened to me. So I got 80 on it, and even though there's a really good section in here, I think near the bottom on runtime auditing, but it's got Falco and Sysdig and the other course, which is also in Udemy, which was divided into domains. This isn't, but neither is the exam. It was divided into domains, and there was a good runtime section. Showed you how to do Falco, showed you how to do Sysdig. And I thought that's good because that's what they use for runtime. I'm like,
Sysdig,
great.
Falco.
Yeah. And
Remember that was a whole conversation about how Falco ended up on the exam.
yeah, let's not get into that.
Right.
We could. I thought it was a bit, but then I got in there and I thought I actually by then I was pretty handy with Falco and SysDig.
Mhm.
But the question they gave me was like blah, like it was the only one I didn't even start.
Yep.
Because I just went, what? How do I do that? Like that was nothing like any of the examples I had, I could find, and I just went, nope, sorry.
The Falco example that I got, the documentation was not set up properly to let you even search for the answer at all.
Okay, so you ran into the same problem probably I did.
and
I
it
just
was, it
went.
was the annoying thing is it was like the second question. So you get there and you're like, okay, well I have a second question. I'll go through, look through the documentation. You spend like 5 minutes. You're like, what? And so my number one thing is if you don't know the answer right away to whatever they're asking, if you don't know like the general direction, skip it and come back. Like,
All right, let's talk a little bit about that. Actually, you're right. So given this is the third exam, I did the first question, and the first question was worth like a lot. So I just kind of tackled it, and then I thought, oh, I didn't mention that the Learn Online thing that they use crashed my Chrome. So even though my test started at 11 a.m., I didn't even get started until 11:30. Like I was online at 1:45, and it crashed the browser, and I had to do things, and I ended up downloading the Vivaldi browser. Never even heard of it. And had to re-import my bookmarks from Chrome into it. And then finally I got to go at 11:30. And then the first question I had was this whopping great monster.
you were already stressed out too.
And I was already freaking out because I didn't know if I was going to lose my half hour. And I did it, and I was like sweating, and I could smell myself already. And I took a moment, opened up the notepad they provide you, and I just, because you could just click through all the questions and have the notepad open it's their notepad. See, and I just wrote 1, network policy, 5%, 2, PSPs, 6%. And I just created a list and went all the way up to the 19th question, where I think that was my Falco one. Went Falco runtime, okay, 7%. And then I had this list next to me, and I could just eyeball it, and I did all the big questions first, all the whopper, like more than 10%. There were some pretty huge ones. Then I did the 7s, then the 6s, then the 5s, and the 4%, and the 2. Or if there was like a 2 or a 3, something worth hardly anything, but I knew how to do it. Like I know Trivy inside out, right? Because worked there. So that took me about 2 seconds to do that one. So I went boop, boop, gone, and I was out. So seeing all the subjects and percentages in a list, even though that blew, let's say 5 minutes of my time, probably saved me 20 minutes because I prioritized my attack on the list so that an hour in, I'd already got past the 67 minimum, I felt. And then I was doing the harder stuff. And so, and which is how the Falco one, which was worth 7%, I did it last because I read it and went, nope, and then left it and was just like, oh, and that was where I ran out of time. But I felt that was a pretty effective. That was pretty effective. It worked. I didn't do that on CKA, and I wish I had.
Yeah, that's a big one. And when I do it again, I want to time it so I retake the CKA and retake the CKS, because taking the test and remembering how to actually take the test is so important. If you just jump into the CKS, first one in a while, it's rough.
It was, yes. It would. Well, I did the CKA a year ago, exactly, I think. So somebody asked me about it, and I said, if you can do them back to back, do it. Because the skills are somewhat transferable. But yeah, it was interesting. There's things, if I just open them all up really fast, you see there's a good section on OPA. There was no open on my test, but that's the way the world's going. So learn it. How to set up a lot of certificates. And as you said, if you don't know the anatomy of Kubernetes via kubeadm in terms of like how to look into etcd, how to exactly what all the things in kube and the kube API server config are, where the kubelet config is, where the logs for the API server live, so when you break it, which I inevitably did, you know how to figure out how you just broke it because you stuck a random wrong thing or you missed a dash, and you can recover your question. So there are questions on recovering Kubernetes, which you think, oh, well, that was good. I can do that. And then you realize that every other question is going to give you an opportunity to break it. And that's not even part of the question.
Yep. We should at least, I don't know if we have to go or not, but we should at least finish with don't delete anything in the test. There's nothing that needs to be deleted. I think there's one question that specifically might be like, hey, there's this one bad pod or something like that. Get rid of it. But again, like most of the stuff, it's always like, this has been misconfigured, like reconfigure it. Because I think as a general rule, you shouldn't be creating a test where you have to delete something. So let's say you delete something in an environment, then you need to get back to the steady state that it was at in order to redo the question. Does it make sense what I'm trying to say here?
I totally know what you mean. Yeah, it's having a delete question is a great way to accidentally ensure you can never get that question right.
Yeah, and so a lot of the questions were designed so that you didn't have to delete anything. And if you ever have an issue, you're going into a question, it's just kubectl get, put it out into JSON or put it out into a YAML file first, and then go after it. So you can always like bring up that namespace after, right?
Yep. And I guess we could probably sit here and talk hints all day. One hint I would give that I think I saw in the training for the CKS exam and the killer, but was also in the exam, is that where all the documentation around a certain subject was to do with pod. And then they presented you with the challenge around a deployment. So the chain where your solution goes changes, and it's not where you think it would be. Like, you make sure that if this is a pod specific solution, you don't put it on the deployment.
Yep.
Because you'll get it wrong and it won't do anything. And like you said, it'll accept it. Like so many of these problems, you get the YAML and you're like, all right, if Kubernetes says the YAML's good, I probably have the right answer. Nope, you don't. It'll just go, great. But then nothing changes and it doesn't work.
And then
it's
you
like
score back and you wonder where you went wrong.
Well, so this is my example is there are 19 questions. One I left worth 7. I had a maximum possible of 93. And I answered every single question to the point where I thought I could have got 93. Mm-hmm. And I got 80. So which means I got a 6 and a 7 wrong. And I have no idea which one, but that had to just be a full-on fat finger, didn't verify, got an indent wrong, put a dash where I wasn't supposed to have a dash.
There are certain questions where they want you to file an output to a specific location. And my thing is sometimes it's like, hey, I'm using this application. I don't know what that output's supposed to look like necessarily unless you've used the application before. So if it says, hey, this application's going to be on the test, I'd recommend working with it to have at least some familiarity. Because just because you think you know everything doesn't mean, oh, is this what they're looking for? Is this the output to the correct file? And it's very, like, you think about it, it's an automated checker, right? So it's going to be very specific. If you misname a file, no points.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I mean. Like, because like most of the questions, there's some big questions. Then almost all the questions after, like there was no 8 and 9%, 10% questions. They were all 7s and 6s. So when I lost 13 points, it was pretty obvious I missed a 7 and a 6. And you're right, because there was no conscientious, kind proctor reading my question and going, oh, he tried so hard. He almost got there and he missed by 1 indent. 0.
Yeah. No, it's gladiator style.
Yeah, that's it. You get nothing. So, and that was pretty obvious. So awesome. I think the big takeaway, we got running out of time, is that it's way harder. And if any of the stuff it assumes, and you said this back when we were talking about we had somebody who was upset because the CKA, you need the CKA to get the CKS. Not only do you need it, it's super helpful and do it soon before, but it completely, all the stuff you do in the CKA, like creating this, doing this YAML, create this pod, creating all these objects, it just flat out assumes you know this.
Yeah.
And goes, all right, we're at 100 miles an hour. Now drive through all
objects. Yeah, they just go, here's the object, and then it's up to you to change it or alter it or make it more hardened or secure, right?
Yeah. This is broken. Here's an object which is terrible. Or here's a template that is not filled in, but is not the best template. You're better off going to the docs.
All right, Steve, the CNCF is going to come put a strike on us if we talked for too long.
All right, fine. All right, we're done. We're done. But I'm not saying anything that wasn't in the CKS course. That guy had tips all over the place. All right, that's the end of that one. That was not really a tool time. That was more like a training exercise. But there you go. We're available if you want any more information.
Yeah, ping us. We have a bunch of CKS knowledge now. So let us know if you're looking to pass it. If you want any tools, tips, and tricks, we can point you in the right direction. Overall, some craziness in the world. Yeah, exactly. Twitter, YouTube, and at gmail.com. Look forward to seeing you in the coming weeks.
That's the end of the show. My name's Steve Jaguar.
And I'm his co-host, Mike Foster. Have a good rest of your week.